This is Going Under, Anesthesia Answered with Dr. Brian Schmutzler. I'm your host, Vahid Sadrzadeh. Today, another very special guest joins us here on the podcast. His name, you might have heard of it before, Craig Capurso. From trading oil on Wall Street to finding fame and fortune in fitness, Craig helps others find their truth and their livelihood through the four pillars of purpose, faith, fitness, fellowship, and finances. We'll talk, Craig and Brian, about those four F's here throughout the show. Currently, Craig is the coach of My Battle Plan, executive business consultant at 2020 Vision for Success Coaching, co-founds of Metron Innovation Group, and if that's not enough for this busy guy, he also is the owner of a franchise gym called Rockbach Fitness and podcast host of My Battle Plan, where he talks about the four F's and current events. So, without further ado, Craig Capurso, welcome to the podcast. And, man, we're really excited to chat with you today.
Yeah, guys, I appreciate you having me on. Brian and I have been connected, and I'll let him kind of get into that a little bit. But, yeah, excited to just talk to your listeners and just have a good conversation, see if we could give them some value.
Yeah, definitely. So like I do with all my guests, I want to give a little bit of background on how we connected. But so probably like 2013, 14, something like that. I was big on bodybuilding.com. I'm downloading all the stuff, and back then it wasn't as easy as the app, so I had to like print off all this stuff. So I see this guy, blonde curls, big dude, and I'm like, ooh, I like how that guy looks. So I want to look like that. So I print off this 30 days. It was the 30 days out, I think, right? Wasn't it, Craig?
Yeah, that's right behind
me. So I print off the 30 days out, and I did that religiously 2 or 3 months a year for probably 5, 6, maybe 7 years. Till I, started having kids and got super busy and started a business and all that kind of stuff, which is no excuse, which I'm sure we'll talk about. And so, that really was my introduction to Craig. I kind of like idolized, like, this guy's got it all together. Look at him. And then, as we talked to Rodney Razor here locally, he's a trainer here locally, and I work with him a bit. He was also involved in bodybuilding.com, and your time actually crossed over.
Yep.
So Rod and I had talked about you, time to time. And then I think maybe, what was it? Probably 4 months ago, 3-4 months ago, I just reached out to you on Instagram. I was like, hey, this guy looks like he's doing some cool stuff. I agree with it. We're non-controversial and non-political here, but I agree with a lot of the stuff he's saying on his social media. So I reached out and I was like, hey, can we connect? And so since then, Craig and I have been working together. Craig's trying to get me back in fighting shape, like I was before kids. Yeah, but before I was, the way I was before kids, before the craziness of life. So that's kind of the introduction. And so I think Craig and I connected not only on sort of the fitness level, but Craig and I have a lot of similar views on especially faith. But I'm trying to learn some finance from him as well, and then certainly fellowship and. Even though it's not an F, maybe politics a little bit, and I'll leave it there because again, we're non-controversial. But just going from there, Craig, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and fill us in on the pre-2014 and then post-2014 Craig Capurso.
Right on. Appreciate the intro, guys, and thanks for having me. Yeah, bodybuilding.com was kind of a godsend. I was, I don't know what you want to call it. It was a good stop on the road because I had just started my journey in fitness. Not just. I was a football player for years, and I was trying to go pro. And I was in college, and I played semi-pro after college. I was in finance, and I did all the right things, right? After college, I was doing everything that you could do to get to the next step, get to the next level, whether that be sports or finance. So I was always just religious, like with my workout effort and everything that I was putting forth. But I kind of hit a roadblock of not turning pro. I mean, go figure. It's like what 1 in a million chance of turning pro. So I was so pissed that I didn't get a chance to do that. And competing in the sports world kind of gave me another shot. And so bodybuilding.com had this body space spokesmodel search, and I actually just did my very first fitness show, and this was after I started doing football, so I had some good size, and I just had to learn dieting, and I hired my first coach, and he kind of taught me the ropes and showed me kind of just all the things that I wasn't doing. I was just eating like a meathead, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and all the things just to gain weight, and it was completely the wrong way to go about it. So I wish I had during my sports career a performance coach that would have just helped me take things to the next level. But moral of the story is I was able to do things. I was on Wall Street at the time. I was competing, or I was on the open outcry markets in the NYMEX, New York Mercantile Exchange. And at the time, I was like clerking, 2 years there, and I started boxing. And I was actually doing these boxing events, these little smoker events on Wall Street. I was at BB King's, and then I did another one, and I did well. And what I did do is actually cut weight, so cut kind of that football weight when I was playing semi-pro, and it revealed like a body underneath all this thick football mass. And I was like, oh, look pretty good. And so I started doing these shows, and I started winning. I just had the right look at the time and the right musculature, and I started winning. And then I started just getting into the nutrition side more and saying, okay, this is what it's all about. And I saw Body Space Spokesmodel Search. I tried out for it, and I actually went all the way. There was like 300, 200 something guys that, tried out online, and I got picked to the top 10. Then I finally made the top 5, and then I actually competed against 5 other guys, and I won the whole thing. And so kind of kicked off my career that way. And so that's kind of how I got into it.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. So tell us a little bit about your transition from that world, right? And I know a lot of you guys, because we talked to Rod about this a little bit too, kind of transitioned in that 2016, 17 range. You went from doing all that stuff with bodybuilding.com to what was next and then into now. So what was that transition?
Sure. So on the floor of the exchange, I was actually one of the open outcry guys. Like I said, the hand signals, if you remember, like the trading places and all those other things you see the floor. I was that guy with the trading coat. And the hand signals. And so what happened for me is the electronic markets actually started becoming prevalent. And so now we're trading with the tablet. So now we don't need the hand signals. And so I saw the writing on the wall. I was like, this is going to go away. This is all going to be up in an office somewhere. And sure thing, it did. It did go that route. So I kind of saw the writing on the wall, and I didn't leave just for that reason. I ended up packing it in after 6 months of trading on the floor. I couldn't guess the market right. It was like, the supply and demand, it just didn't make any sense anymore. You'd have a hurricane and prices would drop. I was trading oil. And so I was just like, man, this is just not making sense. And, as a smaller trader, I wasn't, seasoned that long compared to some of the guys that have been there forever. I'd get run over. So I got to have my size of 50 to 100 lots or whatever, and I'd be better bid than somebody. But then on the screens behind me, because now it's electronic, people are doing stuff OTC. And so I'm like, man, I'm better bid than these guys, and they're trading below me because they could do size. And so I was like, man, if I don't just join a team or go lateral, go to the office somewhere, this is all going to end. So I decided, to take my fitness, which was actually popping off at the same time. I was literally trading by day and doing fitness at night, and doing fitness at night, if you will. And I said, you know what, I'm going to actually put my hat over here. And my partner actually, with my software company, Metron, what we do is help coaches go digital. We give them a platform, kind of the same one that you're using, Brian.
Right.
And we do that for other coaches as well. He kind of reached out and wanted me to come on board as like, I don't know, a sponsor, not a sponsor, but like he wanted me to be affiliate. And I was like, I'm not an affiliate. I was like, I got better plans for you. And so we ended up meeting after a photo shoot I had in LA, and saw his platform, and I loved it. And so kind of repitched him, and ended up coming on board in the earlier stages and became a co-founder of the company. So I left Wall Street. I went over to, Silicon Valley, San Jose, and co-founded Metron with him. And so that was my transition out of the financial side into like the more entrepreneurial side. And that's kind of when I transitioned also out of bodybuilding.com, because I was really just focused on kind of growing this company and things of that nature. And moral story is I pitched bodybuilding.com, our app, in our business model at the time. And I'll tell you right now, this is aired first, live, public. You're getting the skinny. I swear to God, stole my idea. So I was a little jaded with bodybuilding.com after a while. They literally have something that we called All Access. They have theirs called like My Fit app or something.
Yeah.
I literally talked to the top of the company. We had like a backdoor meeting, and like 3 months later, they came up with the same damn business model that I was running. And obviously, they had all the people. They had me. They had everyone else in our programs that they built out. So they had the money. They had all the infrastructure, and they excelled way better than we did. So kudos to them.
But your app is way better. I mean, you look now, like I've got both apps on my phone. The Metron app is way better than the bodybuilding.com app. The other thing, and I don't want to disparage bodybuilding.com because whatever.
No, they've done me right, but I was.
It's glitchy. The bodybuilding.com app is glitchy. If anybody ever, I mean, I don't know if you've ever used a Vahid or Craig, if you used it, but it's kind of glitchy. So
they're more one to many, where it's like kind of like almost like a if you know front end versus back end, they're just a front end website, right? They're basically just push versus basically taking in data, understanding the data, and then going back. So
yeah. Okay, so yeah, you transitioned into that, did the Metron thing. So tell me about the current life of Craig Capurso. What do you got? What are you doing now?
Oh man. Well, I'm trying to do my best for you guys. You guys are like my number one priority, but it doesn't always get right. As far as the gyms, they're very time consuming right now. It's a tough market. Everyone's kind of looking outside, and uncertainty is causing a lot of chaos and
Yeah.
people to either not have the money to pay for gym memberships. We're not $10 a month like Planet Fitness or something like that. We're a little bit more boutique, 150 to 200 mark. And so, it's the first thing that people cut when things are going tough. So I'm having to jump in back and operate Murfreesboro and do a little coaching again, which is, I thought was not beyond what I was supposed to do, but it's just, I thought I was leveling up, and now I feel like I'm sometimes backtracking. So that's where I spend probably majority of my time. What I should be doing, Brian, is working on God Strong and Battle Plan. I mean,
Yeah.
frankly, the God Strong stuff that started, and I know you said you want to kind of talk about that, but that was
Yeah.
my faith pillar, and I needed something for me during the battle plan process, and started working with men. Right, really, I was being a fitness author for bodybuilding.com and Cellucor. I was also sponsored with those guys at the time, and I started giving out a ton of programs. So that's kind of what changed me to become a coach versus athlete. I started working with folks, gave these programs, and I just saw the tremendous amount of results that were coming back. Kind of like you had mentioned, you've done my program a few different times, and I saw that I had a knack for being different. I've been in fitness my whole life. I played football, I did college, I played semi-pro. So I was just, this is who I am. I'm just a fitness guy. I always called myself an athlete, but I started building hybrid type programs for people that just weren't bodybuilder programs. They had a different array of setting up workouts, a series, using timing, using intensity, things of that nature. And so I kind of just found kind of like Leonardo, I was like Leonardo for building workouts. I love just putting things together and making them flow well and getting results out of it. So with that, I created a program called Battle Plan. And that's kind of what I did through the Metron, the app, and started working with people one to many. And this was anybody who would want to do it. And then I kind of just got into a niche after pushing out the one to many programs that I said, man, there's a need for people to have a coach. There's a need for people to have a conversation with somebody. People that can afford my services will come in a room, we'll get into this fellowship is what I call it, and we'll talk faith, fitness, fellowship, finance. And, there's more to just fitness. People will start and stop all the time, and they'll give up on themselves because they're not committed either financially or to other people. And so having a public accountability, having people in a group that's holding you accountable, there's so many different things, but that's the reason I built the battle plan, the coaching side for men. And, go ahead. I'll give you a moment to talk because I can keep going.
No, you're good. Yeah, yeah. You're just
No,
talking some
yeah,
smack. Yeah, go. So just talking some smack in our conversations, and like, oh, this guy lost 7 pounds. I only
Yeah.
lost half a pound. Like, it's good. Go. What were you saying, Vahid?
It was
no,
more
I
or
was
less,
just gonna. Yeah, sorry guys. I was just gonna jump in, Craig, and just kind of before we get too deep into the 4Fs and kind of how you transition to that. I would like to know because a lot of people shift careers, right? I mean, quote unquote. Maybe a lot of the people that you coach shift careers. And, we've been talking about on Brian's podcast, we've been talking about how kind of multiple careers happen and you kind of just, maybe there's not one thing for somebody. But let's go back to kind of your finance life on Wall Street. How did that prepare you for what you have faced maybe over the last 10 years? Like how did that positively influence and impact what, everything that you've been doing since?
That's a good
Sure.
question.
Yeah, and thanks for the question. It's I speak fast, and that's possibly views from the north, and also being a trader. You got to think really quick on your feet. When I get going, and it's just like I just get on a rip, and it's like the first take is always better than the second take, so I just let her go. And as you're in an open outcry market, let's just say me on the floor, you're literally in a room with another bunch of alpha males that are just like go-getters. They think quick on their feet and they're ready to go, and you're fighting for dollars. You are literally fighting over money, and you're sitting there, and it's like you'll see a broker come approach the pit, and they'll be like, "How's the $100 call?" And we're like, 80-20, 80-120. And the quickest person that gets it out, he sold. All right. And then you're like, how many? 100. You do shit fast. So it's like, how do I react? I would say it's a blessing and a curse because I expect now people to catch my speed. I expect everyone who works with me to catch up to me. And I have to now understand I'm in Tennessee. I'm talking to people that might speak a little slower, and I get that all the time. Slow down, and they just do little things slower. So I'm a little bit out of place here, but I think it just lets me just see it like the Matrix. I just see things slowing down. I'm just like, as they're moving in their motion, I'm moving in my motion. So I got to just remember to just keep up, with everybody else and be the good leader that brings them with me as opposed to leaving them behind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, I mean that's great, and I think we talk a lot about having sort of multiple careers, which obviously you do, or multiple streams of income, right? You do the gym, you do the battle plan, you do all this other stuff, and so that's. I mean, I think that's key. I think you probably agree. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. You got to make sure that you've got all these things laid out where you're able to make sure that you can weather. Maybe you don't. Maybe you disagree.
I want to disagree on that right now because I will say, I want to disagree because me being a serial entrepreneur, if you will, like probably yourself and everything things, I can say when I did my best is when I was singularly focused. What I find right now is I'm like butterfly and I get distracted and I go, and it really takes me out of the moment. So I also do think that you should have some diversity to what you're currently going after, just in case. But you've heard it, burn the boats, go all in. When you're thinking of something over there, think about the person who's doing only what you do. True. That's their sole focus. They're going to move faster than you, farther than you,
and better, and no more. And that's a fair point.
So I've saw myself as average as of lately. I'm like, man, am I actually as good as I can be? I find myself more average in what I'm doing than if I just invested all my time and energy into it. So I have places where it's like I enjoy being able to say I do X, Y, and Z, from a cool perspective, right? But cool doesn't pay the bills. So I will say when I do show up at these places, and if I had all my energy in that place, I would know that I would be able to give more to that person who needs me. And so I do resent a little bit of me being overextended in certain places.
How do you mitigate personal risk, though, right? I mean, how do you, if you put all your eggs, like I said, you put all your eggs in one basket, how do you mitigate that personal risk if, let's say, God forbid, battle plan fails? How do you mitigate that without having a gym or something else to fall back on? Or you just say, hey, I start over with X?
I think it's passive versus, concentrated, right? Well, what are you currently doing that's, money-making activities versus maybe passive type of activities, maybe real estate investments, things of that nature.
Yeah.
That way you could have a sole focus, because I could just tell you right now, I should be a creator, right? And I don't mean an influencer, but a creator. I create things. That's what I do. I'm an author, a speaker, a podcaster. I should create things. I shouldn't be stuck in the admin side. I should have people for doing that. Unfortunately, I've got myself in a pinch where I'm doing all of it. And if you're in your creator space and you try to go do something, hey, can I borrow you for 5 minutes? You know what you just did? You cost me like 3 hours.
Yep. Absolutely.
Just getting out of flow. So you know what I mean? So that's kind of where I'm thinking.
Right. I also agree with you, Craig, on this theory of 10,000 hours, right? And you master something. Well, Brian, I mean, I can argue and say because you're such a specialized anesthesiologist and a master at your craft, you're able to do all these other things that you've set out to do. I mean,
maybe.
Well, I mean, it gives you the experience, the credibility, the go on and on and on. But, I mean, I've tried to do other things, Craig. I mean, listen, I've been kind of over the map over my, 20 years working in industry or whatever. But, you always come back to something you're passionate about. And if you're passionate about something and you go all in on something, I think that opens the door to other avenues that you can then take advantage of or, so on and so forth.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you guys, and I don't think there's a right way to play for everybody, but let's single Brian out for 1 second just because I kind of know what he does. Brian, is there any way you can be a better anesthesiologist, or do you think you max that out, right?
Oh,
like you probably
I'm the best. No, I mean, so I'm very, very good at regional anesthesia, and I'm very, very good at orthopedics because that's what I do all day, every day. Okay. I'm not good at doing open heart anesthesia anymore. I'm not good at doing pediatric anesthesia anymore just because I don't do it. So. Yeah, could I be a better overall anesthesiologist? 100%. Could I be a better anesthesiologist at what I do every day? Probably. I don't think. I mean, there's always room for improvement, but I think I'm pretty darn good at what I do.
Right. Well, that's my point. If you almost hit that ceiling, right, in your capacity, and you actually have to be there. You can't be a digital anesthesiologist, right? Like
True.
you can't grow and
You have.
scale. So you've hit your stride as far as like that block. So it's no wonder that you're looking for other things that can help you scale.
That's fair.
Now, I have unlimited scale, right? The only thing that holds me down is that thing that's actually making me go to the gym,
Right.
Rockbox, right? So I have a little bit of resentment for that over here because I'm like, man, I should be scaling everything I've ever done to my software company. My online company is a scalable solution. It gives me the time freedom to do X, Y, and Z and upside potential. But Rockbox, the current one. So I guess I'm telling you guys, I hate to say this, but watch out for those brick and mortars. They're tough because
Yeah.
someone's got to be there. If you short on staff,
That's
you're the
true.
guy showing up. So just be careful with that. But that's, I guess, what I'm getting at. When I look at my options, I'm saying, man, I have two that can take me to the moon, and I have one that's going to only go so far.
Yeah, it's locked in. You're right. Yeah, I don't do brick and mortar. I don't have any brick and mortar, right? Everybody who works for me or with me, totally remote. So I have zero brick and mortar. Obviously, you got a little brick and mortar Vahid in terms of office space, but nothing that's going to hold you back. So that's a good point. All right, let me flip this. I want to totally change topics.
Let's go.
I want to talk because this is one thing. I mean, aside from the fitness part, which obviously you do amazing. The big thing that I'm starting to learn from you more than anything is like we've talked about, nutrition, sleep, and hormones. Like those are the three big things that I'm really learning a lot from you, and then obviously everybody who works with you, Lisa, and all those other people. But so my question is, maybe can you walk us through? So tell me a little bit about, and for me personally, I don't sleep probably enough, which obviously you'd say. So tell me in as plain of words as possible, because we've got a lot of people who aren't into fitness who listen to this. How does sleep affect everything, including fitness? How does that roll into hormones? And then let's also talk about nutrition, because I want to rail a little bit on nutrition.
Sure. So sleep, I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to change things like leptin and ghrelin, your hunger hormone, your satiety hormone. So two of those things that are going to get out of whack. So if you're not sleeping, you're going to, we talked about this on the last call. There was I don't know if it's Stanford study or Harvard study, whichever study it was, but they did you have less ability to say no later in a day the longer you're stressed, the longer you're under these
Yeah.
elevated cortisol levels and things of that nature. So when you sleep less, your cortisol levels are up, and so therefore you'll have less ability, cognitive function, to say no to things. And so just from a straight standpoint of like, can I resist this? Well, when you're under undersleep, or I don't know how you want to say that word,
Yeah.
when you're not sleeping enough, you're going to say yes to more things that you probably shouldn't. So just from an easy standpoint, your willpower goes down without sleep.
That makes
You're
sense.
going you're going to be crankier. You're going to have all these other things that are going on because you're like in your head, like, I should be sleeping, but I'm not sleeping. And then later on, it's going to catch up. Cortisol's up, your weight's going up, and you're going to see the effects of it later on. So there's some small things you'll see acute, and then you'll see things that are chronic.
Yeah. And that's interesting. So how do you, and this is a question maybe you don't have an answer to, because I've asked you this question about myself. How do you get more sleep? Because me personally, we walked through my entire day, right? You said, hey, walk me through your entire day. Where do you cut things out to sleep more? I don't have an answer. I don't know where in my day I cut something to sleep more.
I do. I actually thought about this after we had that conversation.
Okay.
We're talking right now. You can cut certain good activities that you may want to do out of your middle of the day and work out right in the middle of your day. I actually thought about this the other day because
Interesting.
I actually work out in the middle of the day and it's actually really good.
Huh.
I have a break where I'm like, I'm not productive, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna go jam that right there with a workout. And
So
so
but that only works if I don't have patients in the operating room, right? If I got patients in the operating room, because there's days I'm at the hospital from 5:45 in the morning till 7 o'clock at night. So,
okay,
but
well,
sometimes I can concede the point. There are sometimes I could potentially get to the gym in the middle of the day.
yeah, and then there's things you're gonna have to say no to, right? Like, even if if it's a battle plan call, as much as I would say I don't want you to miss, if that's an hour that you got to get and you got to get it in, I could understand that. I just maybe we move things around. But man, we always could look at our schedule and be like, are we really this busy or are we doing something else? And I find myself as busy as I think I am. I could always squeeze out something somewhere.
Yeah, I think
Craig,
that's
as
fair.
this is interesting. The no part is hard for some people, right? Saying no, it is. It's like, yeah, Brian, myself. I mean, saying no is hard because one, you want to help people. One, you want to, we're trying to do as much as we can in a day. Where did you
Build
learn
business.
that, Craig? Honestly, like to say no. How do you say no? How did you learn to say no? Right?
Yeah, I got you. It's a great question. You have to either spend a lot of money on something that you want and the outcome would be you lose the money, or B, you got to put your balls on the line and say I'm going to go on stage or do something crazy and I'm embarrassed at the end of the time if I don't have that outcome. So like it's two extremes. Working with me is not cheap. So you're out some money if you don't do the things, or B, you go commit to something pretty hard and you're going to be like, man, I'm going to get my butt kicked or I'm going to get embarrassed if I go over there. So I think you really have to commit and compete. And we talked about this in our last call. Competing gives you a little camaraderie, gives you a little competition. So, like, I think in life, if you can say, I have an end goal that's not just mine and made up, I just want to have better abs. Okay, that's cool. But if I don't, I'll give up on it. And it's not a
But
big
I
deal because I
do.
like the
I do
beer
want
and
better
the,
abs.
I know, but like the beer and the pizza's over there and you're just going to go
Yeah.
for that because that's just how it is. That's what people do. But if you're like, dude, I got to give up the beer and pizza. I got to give up going out with my friends. I got to give up all these things because I'm going on stage in a month and I got to literally look like a cover model. And
Right.
so I learned by putting myself out there and having the public humility of saying, if I don't show up, I'm going to look like a jerk.
Yeah.
So that's where I learned to say no. And once I got it, I was able to just lock it in. But it did take a minute to just lock myself into a box, a commitment device.
Yeah.
There's different places you could, but it's a commitment device.
So tell me this. So okay, so that's sleep, obviously. But the big thing, maybe even more so than sleep or equal to sleep, nutrition, right? So you said you didn't get your fitness honed in until you started the nutrition. And so my argument, we talk about this a little bit on our pod, is that food is not really food anymore, right? Like we've had conversations where people are like, "Yeah, I got these chicken things from Costco." You're like, "Dude, you can't eat that." Like, read me the ingredients. There's no food in your food. So give me your sort of diatribe or your thoughts on nutrition. Not only how do you use nutrition for fitness, but nutrition in the United States and the world as a whole right now. Like, tell me your thoughts.
Oh boy, here we go. I see where you're going with this. I'll give you the quick one. Like it's so easy to just say if you can't kill it, grow it, or there's another one, right? Or you can't grow it, kill it, or something another. You don't eat it, right? But at the end of the day, you should be looking for single ingredients in your label. Pretty simple. Is it a meat? Is it a poultry? Is it some version of a protein based option? And it's usually one of those. You can look at the plants. You can grow it. So there's probably some protein in that. But I would say just from a general standpoint, if anyone's listening, trying to get some alpha from this, you're under protein. You just are. Like just about 99% of America is definitely under protein, and that probably even is further in the European states where they don't have a focus on that as much. But
And
most people,
over carbs too.
yeah,
Yeah.
under protein over carbs. That's
What is the
you
right amount of carbs, Craig?
there. It
Or no,
depends.
right
I
amount of
don't.
protein. I mean, like for the protein. Did I say carbs? I might have said carbs.
You said
The
carbs.
the right amount.
Yeah,
Yeah, sorry about that. The right amount of protein is hard to right because we can only consume what we can consume in one sitting.
yeah.
No,
But
this is informational for me. So
yeah. Let me debunk this myth right now. So, okay, protein, bone, skin, hair, nails, muscle, right? That's pretty much. I don't think I missed. I think I got them all.
I think
But
you
but that's pretty much our whole body, right? Like just about is outside of just functioning and different things of that nature, where the carbs and fats come in. But for the main thing that you look at, that's all protein based. So if you got bad skin, bad hair, things of that nature, you probably want to focus on protein. But if you focus on that and what number you can go for, think about the goal weight that you want to be. Don't start with where you are. Most people screw that up. I did actually in my bodybuilding.com thing. Actually, I come out later, had better diets. But most people start with where you're at. Well, don't start there. Start with where you want to be, because that's the protein you want to eat. You want to eat where you're supposed to go, not where you are, because then you're going to be off. So I call it maintenance at goal. We're going to look at a number called maintenance at goal, or whatever our goal protein should be. So if you are 250 pounds, want to weigh 200, then the standard should be 200. You've always heard probably 1 pound per. It's a good place to start. It's not the end all be all, but it's a good place to start. So if you want to just take an easy math, where do I want to weigh? Just eat that in protein. That's a good place to start.
And it's hard to switch from. I mean, I was probably, before we started, I was probably a little bit under eating most of the time, but I was nowhere near the protein. I mean, I'm at like 230 something grams of protein a day, which is hard. Like I had to buy all this new food, right? Like I'm eating a ton of just chicken breast and that biltong jerky and stuff. So just trying to get in some additional protein. So I mean, yeah, I think it makes a difference. I mean, it certainly makes a difference on my lifts. It certainly makes a difference on like how I feel and trying to get more, less body fat,
Yeah.
more lean mass.
100%. And let me actually just go one further. You said you can't eat all that protein in a day. So, like intermittent fasters and things of that nature, I had to kind of discover this for myself as well. But you don't actually, if in where I was going with, ripping all the functions of a protein, bone, skin, hair, nails, and muscle, is you've heard probably you can't ingest or synthesize or some version of that more than like what 35 grams. There's a couple numbers that they put out there,
Yeah,
and most
30 to
people are
40.
saying it's based on the protein company set these standards. Well, that's ridiculous. What they did do actually is yeah, you can only synthesize about that much for protein in muscle. But what about your skin? What about your hair? What about your bones? What about your nails? Right? So if you ingest 75 grams of protein in a sitting, you don't poop out the rest. You actually take it and it distributes throughout your body. So that's what you want to think about. It's not always going to build muscle. So think of it like that.
All right. All right. I like it. I like it. And then what about any link between nutrition and hormones? I mean, I know the answer to this question, I think, but what's your thoughts on that?
Well, before we get there, let's talk about just nutrition in the U.S., right? So I could just say if I don't have I gotta get the study. I just read it and I don't know where it is again, but like, Brian, you might actually know it. I think you and I talked about on the call about it. But like, if you pulled someone's testosterone panel or blood panel from like 20 years ago, maybe even less,
Yeah.
you would find that they were way higher than what the average is right
Yeah.
now. Well, why do we think that? There's probably a few things going on. Our cell phones, there's probably the foods that we're eating. It's definitely the foods that we're eating. But like there's so much going on that they're synthesizing food to make it more to make it, where you're just hungry all the time. It's super highly processed. You can just eat and eat and eat and eat. And so that's just blowing us up. So man, you got to just watch out for those things. You could talk about the oils that are in the foods and different things of that nature. I mean, this could be a whole podcast in itself, but like I would just say general health, go after single ingredient food items that aren't super processed. If you have a gigantic label of things, just skip it. Just go for something else.
So then this kind of rolls into cholesterol, right? And you and I actually debate this a little bit, right? So the cholesterol wise, almost everybody's on a statin. I take a statin. My LDL is like 40 something now, right? So, if you look at the heart literature, most of the heart literature says the lower your LDL all the way to 0, the better. You look at some of the fitness literature and the hormone literature, the lower your cholesterol, the worse off you are in building things like testosterone and some of the other sex hormones, and even some of the basic hormone pathways from your brain, right? So, give us your take on hormones, or I'm sorry, on cholesterol, medication, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and Lisa's going to be definitely the person that's going to talk from authority here. I'll just talk from, just general advice as me kind of just researching and doing my own thing. But like, it's one of those things where cholesterol is a funny thing because you go to a doctor's office and they're going to like, oh, you're too high. They're going to, reduce that. But at certain levels, you're going to look at what particle sizes there are.
Right.
Like you can get into the nuances of things. And some of those are there for you, right? Like, again, I don't want to speak outside of what I would call my authority, but yeah, I would definitely say it's not a one size fits all. So, talk to your doctor and maybe ask questions if you're going to go that route. Like, why are you giving me these things? I'm not going to say it's a one size shoes fits all.
Yeah.
I know at the beginning of this, Brian and Lisa kind of were back and forth, and I just heard I heard the side conversations. I was in one, I was out of one, and I was like, all right, well, Lisa, you tell me because like you're the expert here. So yeah, I don't want to speak over my authority on this one. I'll stick to. We call her Doctor Feelgood. I'm Doctor Lookgood. So.
So I mean, I think there's a balance, right? There's probably a balance between cardiac risk and hormones, right? And so I'll admit I probably push more to the cardiac risk because I'm a little bit more afraid of dying from from the big one, the heart attack, than I am dying of maybe a hormonal issue. But I think there is something to be said for balancing out, right? You can't always look at the literature and say, I've got to make myself the least risky to do X, Y, or Z, as opposed to like just living your life and feeling normal and acting normal and that sort of stuff. So,
Well, you're in the medical field, and let's talk a little bit about kind of like how they prescribe versus like a holistic which prescribe, right?
yeah,
So like you go to a doctor and you're within the 300 to 800 range for testosterone, you're good, you're fine.
yeah,
But we know below 300 is probably pretty bad, and then above 800 or 900 or whatever the number is going to be, you're going to start putting more risk factors in front of you. So
yeah,
there's going to be a balance somewhere. But like a doctor, in my opinion, from my experience so far, they're like, you're not dying, you're good. See you later, get out of here. But if you're saying if you're over some amount, they're quick to prescribe. And I just heard this today, and we could go to the politics side of the things. I know that you kind of keep it neutral, but RFK just said, I just read it last night. Now maybe I'll share it in the group, but they said the doctor's office, pediatrician's offices that get vaccines and things of that nature, they get like hooked up for how many kids are actually prescribed to having vaccines.
hmm,
And so that's why you might actually say, well, I'm not a non-vax person, I don't go there. You might not get into that pediatrician's office. And
right.
so they might just not allow you to have it. And I didn't realize that. I knew that there was something going on, but I didn't realize how bad it was and the reason. So like, I'm pretty interested to see, if Trump and, RFK can get together and do something, because I think we're going to see a lot of change, and especially in the MAHA movement, Make America Healthy Again.
Yeah, there's a huge amount of nefarious things that go on and we've talked about this before. The pharmaceutical companies, obviously the ones making the vaccines. There's a lot of bad stuff going on, and insurance companies. We rip insurance companies. That's the one thing I'm absolutely happy to be controversial about. We think insurance companies are about the worst thing you could possibly have, right? So we talk about these things, but I mean, I agree. I like what RFK says about like, let's get back to being healthy. We were more healthy in the 1920s, 1930s, 1950s than we are now. Why is that? Well, part of it is industrialization and corporations running a lot. I mean, I don't know if you've read any of those books about how the sugar industry like convinced everybody that fat makes you fat and fat causes all this stuff, when really, if you look at it, glucose turns into triglycerides, which turns into the things that actually make you fat and actually kill you. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting topic.
On my podcast, I don't know what episode it is, but I had a guest podcast host. His name was Holden McRae. He worked at Pepperdine University. He was like a chief physiologist, and he used to do all kinds of studies and things. And he talked about the food pyramid,
Yeah,
the
it's
scam of the
terrible.
food pyramid.
Yeah,
It's completely built by the food industry.
it
They
should
they
be
put it up
the other way around, right? I mean,
completely.
yeah,
But I mean, we trust our government. We trust these things. I have lost a lot of faith. I question everything now.
yeah.
I don't know if you guys are like that, but like I literally hear something and I'm just like, it's BS until
100%.
it's not BS.
We just did it's sort of one of our other side podcasts with someone talking about the COVID-19 vaccine and all the craziness around that. We got into a little bit of that controversy as well. So
And it was
Craig, I want to ask you. I
go
want to
ahead.
ask you quickly. We've had Rodney on the podcast, and he kind of gave his opinion on this, but I want your opinion on this as well. And I don't know if this is a controversial topic, but Brian and I have discussed it on the podcast here. Kind of mixed nutrition with the medical side of it.
Yeah.
How are you feeling, and how do you feel about GLP ones, and what is your viewpoint on, do people take them? Should they not? And if they do take them, what is the right balance? How do you feel about it?
Well, I'm not again, I'll stick to my purview. I'm not 100% knowledgeable in that space, but if we're going to just talk about, performance enhancing anything, I have taken, steroids. I have taken testosterone, things of that nature when I was competing. I did turn pro naturally, so I didn't need it to turn pro. But the game has changed now. Like, I don't think you can find a pro that's not, you're going to be doing something in the game, physique and these other ones. I was fortunate to be early, but I was also one of the biggest early guys. Like, so had I stayed in it, I probably would be competing with the big boys and doing very well today because I was bigger early. I literally had a judge tell me stop working out. Literally, he just said do cardio. I was like, well, that's stupid. I'm not going to do that. But it was early in the series of IFBB Pro. But I will say this. If you're, besides the consequences and the abuse, right, there's probably a way to say I can have a safer dose that's not going to, send me to the hospital, or give me these other things. I think abuse is prevalent in anything you could do. You could abuse ibuprofen,
Right.
So like, I think you want to nail the abuse of it, like how much and how hard, and what are the breaks. And given the facts of those things set aside, if you're doing it for the right reasons to be healthier, stronger, better, I think you make a better body, And so outside of the extenuating circumstances of abuse, I think you're probably building a better human. But whether now you're going to talk maybe the other side of it, are you cheating? Does it matter if you go to China or Russia or these other companies or the other places that don't have anything that might be illegal or considered illegal? Then it don't matter, right? So consider that.
Yeah.
I was the biggest jerk about, like going after people. Not, I would never go online and do this, but like in person. I remember being at the junior nationals for my second show before I turned pro, and I saw gynecomastia on these guys backstage. And it's funny, I actually have some right now that I have to get looked at, but I haven't taken anything in years, so I don't know where it come from. It's a kind of a fluke for me right now. But I saw these guys backstage and with it, and I was like, man, you guys are taking this, taking that, and I was like so upset about it, and I would call it to their face. I was a jerk. But my point was, I wrote an article for RX Muscle way back in the day, and I wrote an article say natural or not. And in writing my article, I changed my heart. Like because I said, I literally came to that conclusion, what I just shared. I said, well, what if I was in Russia? What if I was in Mexico or these other places that don't have these as like illegal? And I think it'd be illegal in Russia. I don't know, but Mexico for sure.
Yeah.
Because you can get them in the pharmacy. So what if I was in these other places that don't have that and they're competing just like we would go take pre-workout or something else? And I was doing nothing nefarious in my mind, then I wouldn't be considering this is bad. But yet we have the FDA and these other people that deem these things illegal. And so therefore in my head, I'm doing something bad.
Yeah.
So I actually
Do we
changed
trust
my
the FDA
perspective.
anyway?
Was that?
Do we trust the FDA anyway?
Yeah, I don't know. But do you know what I mean? Like I changed my perspective of the component of saying, am I cheating or not? But outside of, I guess, abuse, I think you're probably okay because there's a lot worse things that you could be doing.
Yeah. So, all right, here's the questions we ask everybody. So, and Vahid, you know where I'm going with this. So, number one.
I do, absolutely.
That's right. That's right. So, number one, what's the future of fitness? What's the future of your kind of niche in fitness look like? Not necessarily just for you, but for, the United States in general, number one. And then our second kind of follow-up question to that is, if you had it to do all over again, would you?
So what's the future of fitness look like in the US? I mean, I don't know what next year is going to look like in the US. I mean, to be honest with you, what does fitness look like in the US? And go specific with that. Like where? Like, are we talking about athletes? Are we talking about performance? So, I mean, give me a direction.
So usually what I do is in terms of, your career, right? So what is your niche, right? So you do a whole bunch of different things. You run gyms, you run online stuff, whatever. What does that look like as a whole in the next 5 years?
Yeah, good. Okay, so Godstrong. Yeah, you've heard me say that. I haven't really done too much with it. I bought a domain, pretty expensive one at the time, and I was going to do a lot with it, but I got kind of sidetracked. But Godstrong, I feel like I'm building the army for heaven on earth. That's kind of what I'm merging battle plan into, and I think it's going to be the first part of it. I think people will come in through Godstrong for me, and it's essentially what I'm trying to do is build a community, drive something that's going to be community based. It's going to have a fitness and apparel line, because where I came up with that was at my church, Pastor Allen at World Outreach Church. Give him a plug. But I'm sitting in the seats, and he's sitting there saying, "Man, why are we not so willing to put God on our shirt? Why are we not willing to praise this thing that does great? But look around, you got Nike, you got this, you got that. So we're sitting here calling our team, whatever team that we want to belong to, and being so adamant about that. But yet this thing that can give us immense power, immense clarity, immense peace is sitting here just being ostracized. And so I said, man, I'm going to do something about that. And I went to this God Strong men's event that he had, and I was like, man, there's something powerful in this name. And I wore his shirt, and every time I was lifting with that shirt on, people would say something to me. And I would feel a certain way when I had it on. I said, I'm going to go look and see who's got this domain. And so no one did. And so I put a bid on it. I ended up getting it. Nice. My pastor has the trademark, so we'll have to figure out that. But like, I'm going all in on it. And so my idea is, I know how to build gyms. I know how to build fitness and community and fellowship. I'm going to start there with the people that want to be about their fitness and health, and build this community, this group of people that are going in one direction. And I'm going to put a God in front of that and to say, that's where I'm going to go with it. And then the battle plan will have its spin off with the VIP group that, men want to do things more that way. But like for me personally, that's my trajectory. I feel like I've had a wonderful life so far. I've had a lot of opportunities, all these things that I could have done. And I feel like this is my way to pay that forward, because I did not grow up praising God. I did go to church until, I was a Catholic, but like that was not part of who I was. I was a pretty damn big sinner for a long time. And not that I'm not, but now I'm just aware.
Yeah. All right. And then would you do it again? Where you are now, where things are heading, would you do it again, or would you do it differently? Would you stayed in finance? Would you stayed with BB.com?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I talk about it all the time. My wife would tell you that I should have stayed in trading. She knows I love trading, so that's something I do more than I should. I'm watching the markets, listening to markets. I listen at 1.75 speed. Sometimes I get up to 2, but like my point is when it's fast, I'm listening. It's fast,
That fits you.
and she's like, "How are you listening to that?" And I'm just like, "I don't know. I get it." But I'm just trying to take in as much as I can, and so I'm always interested in finance. It's kind of cool, and the reason I like finance a lot is I don't have to worry about customers. I don't have to worry about selling anyone anything. I could just be me versus the world, or me versus the market, me versus the bank, me versus the country. So I like that aspect because I'm always competing, right? But would I leave Wall Street for what I'm doing? Probably not. I can't say that I would have a reason to not, push what I've done. I've met a lot of cool people. If I was on Wall Street, maybe I'd have more money. Maybe I wouldn't. I don't know. But I wouldn't have the stories. I wouldn't have the
Depends what year.
impact. I wouldn't have this conversation, right?
Yeah.
I would just be another guy.
Yeah.
And so I've made a little bit of legacy for me, and something that kind of carries its weight and gives me purpose and gives me, what I call is internal profit,
Yeah.
for the amount of people that I've helped. So no,
Cool.
I think I'd do what I've done.
Nice.
Craig, thank you for that, by the way. I mean, so much honesty in what you're saying and just, pouring out your heart, and we can see that. So thank you for that. Before we go, I do want to ask you, for the people who maybe are struggling to change, right, or struggling to get to that next step where they always thought they could be. Brian makes it a point. He doesn't give advice on this podcast, but you can. So what
advice,
piece
I
of
just
advice?
I'm a doctor. I'm not your doctor, but go ahead.
That's true. What piece of advice would you give those who are just kind of struggling to, maybe put those 4 F's together, to put the pieces together and really take that next step?
Great question, and I probably one that I get more than not. Look, you gotta find rock bottom, because if you're just gonna say that you want it and you don't have a really deep why, you're not gonna do it. You're gonna just start, and this can be just one more thing that you're gonna want to do. So like until you find that deep pain, that deep, I need to change, and I'm willing to do something about it, you're just gonna spin your wheels and just waste people's time, energy, and effort, and yourself as well. So I would say soul search. I would say the first thing you should do is sit in a room by yourself and just write down, maybe the 4 F's. And this is an exercise I actually do. I have a clarity compass. Actually, maybe I'll drop you the link and you guys could give it to people. It's free.
Yeah.
But it's literally just find clarity in your goals and objectives in life, and rank yourself in the things that you say out loud that you want. Some people say I'm Christian. Some people say I'm this, I'm that. Well, how often are you doing the things that would describe you? Would people know that you do those things? If you're a fitness person, would everyone around you know you're a fitness person, or you just say you are? And so on and so on. So I would get real clear with who you actually are, and then determine what are you willing to do about it, and what are you willing to, and who will maybe help you get there. Don't go it alone. You've been there before. Don't go it alone. Find somebody who's willing to help you, whether it be a coach, a friend, a battle buddy, whatever that is. But I would say get clear with who you are first. Get real clear. Chris, like take as much time as you need with that, and then find out what you're willing to do about it, and whether that means you're going to disperse with some money, you're going to commit to things, you're going to do with all that, and then find who can help you get there.
Nice. I like it.
That's awesome. Craig, how do people obviously find you, and how do they find the 4 F's and maybe link up with you if they are looking for that change and that help?
Sure. CraigCaperso.com is obviously the domain you could easily come to. That's always going to be like the place you could start, because it's going to have it's spider webs to all the rest of the stuff that will be out there. But battleplan.com is, getmybattleplan.com is kind of like where people would go if they just want to book a call with me and just see if it's something that's be worth their time for the VIP group and stuff like that. But yeah, follow me on social, Craig Caperso. It's pretty simple.
Nice.
That's awesome. Man, thank you so much for joining us today. Learned a lot. Listen, you might get a call from me. So
Hey.
there you go. One more.
Yeah. Let me just end with this, and appreciate you guys all for saying that. Don't look for a diet plan. Don't look for the quick pill. Don't look for it's until you're ready. Until you are internally ready, you're not going to make that change. So don't go looking for the quick fix. Don't go looking for the next cool thing that comes your way. Like, if that's my best advice for you guys, like, that's why I do the 4Fs, because we all want some version of that. And it's not balance. Don't look for balance either. You're not going to get it. Rhythm. You're going to play a chord high, chords low, but you're going to play the rhythm of your life. So don't look for balance. Look for who you are, what you want, and what you're willing to put into each one of those buckets.
This is great advice.
Cool.
Nobody's going to say it better than that. Craig, thanks so much Thanks so much for being on.
Right on.
All right, this has been Going Under. Anesthesia Answered with Dr. Brian Schmutzler. We'll see you in the next one.